What tips do you have for first-time home buyers?
Yeah, so if you're hoping to buy your first home in Ontario, but you look at home prices and think, how am I ever going to save money? I want you to know something. There are strategies available today that didn't exist just a few years ago. And if you use them properly, you may be able to get into your first home sooner than you think. And I'm not just talking about budgeting harder. I'm talking about using the tax system, your RSP, the first time homebuyer savings account, new mortgage rules, government rebates, and even your mortgage structure strategically. So let me give you some examples here. So, strategy number one, the FHSA. First, if you're eligible and haven't opened a first home savings account, an FHSA, this is probably one of the first places you should start. You can currently contribute up to $8,000 per year to a $40,000 lifetime contribution limit. Here's what makes it so powerful. Your contribution can generally give you a tax deduction similar to an RRSP. The money can grow tax free. And when you eventually use it toward a qualifying first home, the withdrawal can also be tax free. So imagine you're saving $8,000 towards your home anyway. Instead of simply putting that $8,000 into a regular savings account, we may be able to put it into an FHSA, generate a tax deduction, and then take the resulting tax savings and put that money toward your home as well. That's what I call making the same dollar work harder. So if you're a couple and you both qualify, you can each have your own FHSA. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy, combine the FHSA with your RSP. Here's another strategy people often don't realize is available. So you can potentially combine the two of them. The home buyers plan currently allows an eligible first time home buyer to withdraw up to $60,000 from an RSP toward buying or building a qualifying home without paying tax on the withdrawal, provided the program's rules are followed. And if you're buying with a spouse or a partner who also qualifies, they may have access to their own FHSA and home buyers plan. Think about what that potentially means. Two people could have significant money accumulated inside their FHSAs while potentially accessing up to $120,000 combined from their RSPs through the home buyers plan. The FHSA withdrawals don't have to be repaid. The home buyers plan does. That's why I don't automatically recommend draining someone's RSPs just because the government allows it. We need to determine whether using the RSP actually improves your overall financial plan. Strategy number three, use your tax refund to accelerate the plan. This is where planning can get really interesting. Suppose you have $10,000 sitting in a regular savings account earmarked for your future house. Depending on your circumstances, rather than simply leaving all the money in savings, we might contribute some of it to an FHSA or RSP. That could generate a tax deduction. Then, instead of spending the resulting tax refund, we put that refund toward the down payment too. In some situations, we can repeat this strategy over multiple tax years, so we're not necessarily asking you to save dramatically more money. We're looking for ways to make the money you're already saving more tax efficient. Strategy number four, you may not need 20% down. There is another misconception I hear all the time. I need 20% down before I can buy a house. Not necessarily. Under current Canadian rules, the minimum down payment is generally 5% on the first 500,000 of the purchase price and 10% on the portion above 500,000 up to the insured mortgage limit. And that insured mortgage price ceiling was increased to $1.5 million. So, for example, on a $600,000 home, the minimum down payment would generally be $35,000, not $120,000. Now, there are costs associated with mortgage default insurance when you're below 20% down. So again, I'm not saying smaller is always better, but waiting several more years to reach 20% isn't exactly, isn't automatically the best financial decision either. Sometimes buying sooner with a smaller down payment makes sense. Sometimes waiting makes sense. We can actually run the numbers to see. So strategy number five, is a 30-year amortization. There's also been a major change to mortgage rules. Eligible first-time homebuyers can now access 30-year amortization on insured mortgages, and 30-year amortizations are also available to buyers of new builds under the applicable rules. Why does this matter? Because stretching the mortgage over 30 years instead of 25 can lower the required monthly payment. There is a trade-off. If you simply make the minimum payment for longer, you can pay more interest over your lifetime. But we could use the 30-year amortization strategically. For example, qualify using the lower required payment and preserve some flexibility in your monthly budget. But once your income increases, Use your mortgage's prepayment privileges to accelerate the mortgage. In other words, 30-year amortization for flexibility doesn't necessarily mean taking 30 years to pay it off. Strategy number 6. New builds just got much more interesting, and this is one of the biggest recent changes. If you're considering a newly built home, first-time home buyers can now potentially receive a rebate of 100% of the federal GST portion on a qualifying new home valued up to $1 million. So that's rebates up to $50,000. The federal rebate is gradually reduced on qualifying new homes between 1 million and 1.5 million. Ontario has also introduced a temporary enhanced new housing rebate. For qualifying purchases, Ontario's enhanced rebate can cover up to $80,000 of the provincial HST portion, with the full rebate applying to eligible new homes up to $1 million and significant relief continuing above that level. Ontario has also introduced an additional 5% top up for qualifying purchasers who receive the enhanced Ontario rebate. That means when I'm comparing a resale home with a new build for a first time buyer, I don't want to simply compare the sticker prices. I want to know what's the real after rebate cost, because the answer could materially change which home makes more financial sense. Strategy number 7. Don't forget the other credits. Okay. Ontario's first-time homebuyer land transfer tax refund can provide eligible purchasers with up to $4,000 of relief. And federally, an eligible first-time buyer can claim a homebuyer's amount up to $10,000, which produces a federal non-refundable tax credit. None of these things individually buys you a home. But when we start stacking these programs together, they can make a meaningful difference. Now, let's talk about interest rates. As of the summer of 2026, the Bank of Canada's policy rate is 2.25%. Mortgage rates are obviously different from the Bank of Canada overnight rate, and fixed mortgage rates are influenced heavily by the bond market. But we've come a long way from interest rates, the interest rate environment buyers faced a few years ago. So I often hear, should I wait for rates to come down further? Maybe, but I wouldn't build an entire home buying strategy around trying to predict interest rates. Because here's the problem. If rates fall significantly, you may be eligible to borrow more, but thousands of other buyers may suddenly be able to borrow more too. That can increase demand for homes. So a lower mortgage rate doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a better deal on the table on the house. Instead, I like to model different scenarios. What does the purchase look like at today's rate? What happens if rates fall by 0.5%? What happens if they increase? Could a shorter fixed term make sense? Could variable make sense? Or does the certainty of a longer fixed rate fit your budget better? The mortgage shouldn't be chosen in isolation. It should be part of the financial plan. It should fit the financial plan. So let's look at some creative strategies. There are other strategies that we can explore depending on your situation. Could family assistance be structured as part of the down payment? Could buying a starter home sooner make more sense than waiting for the perfect house? Could buying a property with a legal rental unit help offset some of your housing costs? Could we improve your mortgage qualification by eliminating a car loan, credit card, or a line of credit balance before applying? Should we prioritize the FHSA over your TFSA? Should we contribute to your RSP now, generate a tax refund, and potentially use the home buyer's plan later? Should we use a 30-year amortization initially and accelerate payments as your income grows? These aren't generic answers, they're calculations. So that's the part of the first time home buying that I think gets overlooked. Most people start by going online and asking, how much mortgage can I get? I'd rather start with a different question. How do we put you in the strongest possible financial position to buy your first home? Maybe you're ready today. Maybe you're 12 months away. Maybe you're 3 years away. That's okay. Because the earlier we start planning, the more strategies we have available. If you're in Ontario and you're thinking about buying your first home, send me a message. I'll help you build a first home strategy around your income, savings, FHSA, RSP, taxes, down payment, and monthly cash flow so you can understand what you can afford today and what we can do to get you there sooner.